Hello everyone and welcome back to TechNuovo.com. My name's Steph and today we're taking a look at a new ultra-wide monitor that LG sent through. Now it's the second ultra-wide monitor I've actually managed to get my hands on. The first was a little while ago now, I'll leave the link in the description. And I must admit, when I was checking out that first ultra-wide monitor, I was basically looking at it through starry eyes. It was my first ultra-wide, I was playing games on there and it was just a fantastic experience. But now this is my second one and I've had a little bit more hands-on time with it. There are some definite pros and cons to actually owning an ultra-wide monitor for your production or even your gaming needs. So this particular monitor right here is an LG 34WK650, which is a 34-inch ultra-wide monitor with an aspect ratio of 21:9. Now bear that in mind because normal widescreen monitors have aspect ratios of 16:9, so it basically means that, well, as you can see on the video as well, that it's stretched horizontally. Now it also has support for HDR10, so you can expect some much deeper blacks, some much brighter whites. But there is a little bit of a catch with that, which I'll go through in a moment. So the screen actually sits at 33 inches from sort of side to side as well, so it is a hefty monster to stick on your desk. And I do recommend having a nice, decent amount of space so you can really center it on a desk, so you get your full peripheral vision on the left and right hand side as well. Now it does stand as it is at the moment at 18.5 inches tall. That's from desk to the top of the monitor, but it actually extends up as well, and it's got a metal arm and stand on there to give it some kind of sturdiness when it's on your desk. But it does extend up to 22.5 inches tall. That's from desk to top as well, and it also has a 15-degree bend on there as well, so you can tilt that towards you if it's above center or then facing sort of up at you if you're sitting higher than the actual monitor itself. On here there is no tilt left and right like on previous monitors, especially 16:9 monitors I've looked at where you can turn it to a vertical standpoint. There's nothing like that on here. So the actual rear of the monitor itself is fully white, and that's a huge drastic difference to the actual bezels that are around the outside of the monitor. Now I will say that the actual bezels of this monitor are quite thick, especially the one at the bottom, and then comparing it to something like the Dell Ultra thin bezels or the display. Can't remember what their marketing brand was called. Infinity Edge, actually. It's called Infinity Edge. Things like the Dell Infinity Edge bezels on there, the LG has remained to be quite thick. As I said, it's a huge contrast from the actual back of the monitor, which is completely white, and the stand being silver as well. But if you're actually on the desk and you're facing the monitor, I don't think it actually looks that bad. It looks quite smart and, again, very minimalistic in terms of branding. And even buttons on the front as well. There are no buttons, everything's underneath. So on the back of the actual monitor itself, there are very, very minimal ports on there. You get one display port, two HDMIs if you're wanting to plug a PC and a games console in there, and you also get a power port as well. Now there's nothing on the back. Oh, there's also a 3.5 auxiliary jack on there for audio from your desktop. Now there's no USB pass-through on here, so you can't plug any USB devices into the actual monitor itself. And you can't charge anything from the monitor either, which is something I found a bit strange considering other LG monitors sort of in this price range include that. I'm not sure why they didn't include it here on the 650 ultra-wide monitor, but it wasn't a huge issue. I only use one HDMI going to my desktop anyway for my monitor. I haven't got a multi-monitor setup, and I've got no games consoles where my PC is, so it was just one HDMI and one power. And it made trailing the cables a lot cleaner as well on your actual desk. It saves a lot of time in terms of cable management. So with any monitor, it certainly comes down to image quality. Now the resolution here is 2560 by 1080, and that's only because of the ultra-wide style. It's full HD 1080p, as said by the 1080p horizontal lines. It also has a pixel density of 81 ppi, which unfortunately, when you're looking at things like small text on a website, can make it look quite blurry, and you're having to zoom into that web page to actually read the text. I didn't find it a huge issue on games though, but it was certainly when I was on websites that I had a bit of an issue with some of the text and some of the kind of blurriness that you get from that. Now LG have decided to use an IPS panel, which is great for things like color reproduction and wide-angle viewing. Most of the time you're going to be sitting in front of the monitor anyway, so wide angles aren't going to be really a benefit to you if you're sitting on a desk. Now, if you are a gamer out there, you'd be happy to know that it does have AMD FreeSync support, so anyone with a Radeon graphics card with FreeSync support on there can take advantage of that variable refresh rate that FreeSync supports. Now, the refresh rate isn't as fast as gaming monitors out there, but if you're not playing anything too fast motion, you're not going to have a problem, and especially with the slower games. Even when I was playing things like Rocket League, Heroes of the Storm, I didn't really find a huge problem with those games. It still did manage to look quite good, especially in that ultra-wide resolution. So the actual refresh rate is 75 Hz, which, as I said, makes slower games absolutely fine. Fast-moving games, you have to rely on that FreeSync support if you want to get some really, really nice refresh rates and smooth motion out of it. When I was playing fast games like Doom, for example, yes, you do get a bit of ghosting on there, but it wasn't a huge amount to put me off playing that game. But moving on to slower games like something like Sea of Thieves or RTS like Total War Warhammer 2, I'm playing through that at the moment. They looked absolutely incredible, and I think it's just down because there's not a huge amount of fast motion going on the screen at once. And it was able to have really sharp colours, really vivid colours, and it covers 99% of the sRGB colour spectrum as well, which is a huge bonus, especially if you're going to be doing things like content creation, which I'll speak about in a minute. It's just a huge bonus to the actual colours that are being reproduced by the monitor. So one of the confusing aspects of this monitor is the fact that it's called HDR ready with HDR10 technology. Now, a little bit about HDR is it needs to be able to hit a minimum of 600 nits brightness for you to be able to class it as a HDR monitor or a true HDR monitor. Now, I'm not sure whether it's just the ability to sort of pick up a HDR signal, which is why this is called a HDR monitor, but the maximum brightness of this LG ultra-wide is only 300 nits, which I think really renders HDR kind of mute, because you're not really getting any kind of massive benefit using the HDR mode on here. Now, the nice thing about the HDR mode is that it's switchable, so you can turn it on and off, which I've found that I was doing quite a lot of the time. Now, the reason for that is if I had HDR on, then anything that was non-HDR just looked really oversaturated and the colours just really weren't very accurate. And rather than having to keep switching it on and off, there wasn't any kind of, I couldn't find any kind of automatic detection setting on there. And I was just turning it on and off every time I wanted to watch something in HDR, or if I wanted to watch something non-HDR, I was just flick, keep turning it off. So I don't know why there wasn't any kind of auto detection on here to be able to auto detect HDR content, and why they bothered with HDR in the first place, whether it was just marketing, advertising type of jargon, then I can understand that, of course. But actually, in the real world, using the HDR on this monitor isn't going to give you a huge benefit over not having it switched on in the first place. Now, the reason I think they have done this and not turned it into a full HDR monitor is to save on cost. It is a very cost-effective ultra-wide monitor. It's a really, really good bang for buck monitor that would suit anyone, really. I want to say anyone. Even if it's just web browsing, gaming, content production on things like Premiere Pro. It's an absolutely wonderful monitor, and I think that's why they hadn't included full HDR on here with the maximum brightness increase, is to save money. Now, one thing about LG monitors that are absolutely wonderful, and I don't know why other manufacturers haven't cottoned on to this, or whether they can, or whether LG have patented this kind of menu system, is the fact that everything is done from like a joystick at the bottom of the actual monitor. Now, if you click it in, you get your initial menu, which is power, settings, input if you want to change from DisplayPort to the both HDMI ports, and then you've also got game as well. So if you just go into game quickly, it tells you what mode you're on, and it also gives you some very, very nice settings in terms of, there's the FreeSync, black stabilizer, which darkens and brightens shadow areas. So if you're playing a very, very dark game, then you can use black stabilizer to really lift those shadows a little bit. And the last one you've got is response time, which is kind of like the refresh rate. So if you've got fast moving images on screen, then you can turn that response rate up to fastest. As you can see, I've got the fastest option set on there, and I just left it on there. That was no problem at all when I was using this actual monitor. So if we go into the actual in-depth menu system, your quick settings at first looks at brightness, contrast, the volume of the speakers that are built into the actual monitor as well, and max audio, which is the audio driver of the monitor. You can go down to input list, but this is where you're probably going to stay, is in picture. And then I've got it set on custom at the moment, so I've set the picture up myself. But if you go into here, you've got loads of different options that you can choose from, like RTS game, first person, 2 profiles, color weakness, HDR effect, which is the thing I just mentioned where it oversaturates the image, cinema, photo, I can't even read that. Oh, reader, that's quite an interesting one actually, Reader's very good if you're, imagine how a Kindle works. Kindle uses something called e-ink, and it looks really, really dark and saturated up against the white background of a Kindle, okay? This does something very similar, and it just enables you to see text on a sort of like a white website a lot clearer than you normally really would if the brightness was set to the top. Now, I never really entered that, to be honest with you. As I said, I've set up my custom gaming profile down here. So if I set that, which I have, and then I go back into there, I've got things like picture adjust, brightness, color, sharpness, game adjust, which has got a couple of settings in here, response time, FreeSync, black stabilizer, and crosshair. Now, what the crosshair does is you can choose a dot to appear on the center of your screen. So now you can see just here is a green crosshair, which is really, really good if you're playing games like Counter-Strike, where you haven't got any aim down sights, or if you're playing Call of Duty, where you have got a game and you have to aim down the sights, then you can use the crosshair as reference, so you don't have to waste time aiming down the sights, so you get kills a lot easier. I'm not sure how accepted they are in competitions, to be honest with you. I don't know if you can go and play like an MLG competition and then say, oh yeah, well, I bought my monitor because it has a fake crosshair. I don't know how that works. Again, volume, max audio, I keep volume at around 30. And then general settings, so language, smart energy saving, power LED, automatic standby, HDR compatibility mode, which is HDR upscaling. Again, didn't mess around with that because the colors look saturated. But everything's controlled from this little analog stick, or little joystick, should I say, at the bottom, which is really, really good. And it's such an easy menu system, very nicely laid out. Especially when you got your quick settings on there as well that you can just quickly get to. So the biggest downfalls I did find with the picture mode is a couple of things that you do lose out on, and that's any kind of custom color grading, so changing the RGB sliders. And also it doesn't have the color space DCP, which is very, very nice for color correction for content creators. If you're a video editor, for example, it doesn't have that. You're not paying for that. There are professional monitors out there which give you that ability to be able to color grade your monitor and also give you a wider colour spectrum on there for colour grading needs and that kind of thing. Now, one thing that does look good is if you are on Premiere Pro or Final Cut, or even we're using Camtasia at the moment for some of our things, you have, because of the extra sort of real estate of the 21:9 aspect ratio, you can have your timeline pretty much across the whole entire thing, and there's enough room on here for all your little windows, your favorite windows that you want to put onto Premiere Pro. Everything you can fit on the screen, and it worked wonderfully for that, especially for video production. Photo production, not so much, because you don't need ultra wide to edit your photos. You're not moving the photo anywhere or animating it, so you're just color correcting your photo. So it didn't work as well. I would have liked maybe a more production-based, production-led monitor for photo production, but saying that, if you are like me who put your own videos onto YouTube or for Facebook, then this monitor is absolutely great for those kind of basic video editing skills. So the LG 34WK650 is by no means the perfect monitor. I mean, sure, it's great, and I would recommend it to someone looking to invest in a nice cheap bang for buck ultra wide monitor that isn't really specializing in anything like gaming, video editing, content creation, even media consumption, to be honest with you. Just want a nice all-around monitor that does it all well, but not great. The HDR I wished was a little better, but I understand that LG have probably decided not to implement sort of full HDMI, true HDR in their monitor to keep costs down, and it's reflective in the price. You're not going to find an ultra-wide monitor with HDR at this price. So there is that. What I will do for you as well is I will leave a link in the description to the most up-to-date pricing through our Amazon affiliate link. So we'll be entirely grateful if you were to invest in one of these to go through that link. It helps out the channel a lot. I would like to say thank you very much for watching our review of the LG 34WK650 ultra-wide monitor. If you did like this review, then click that like button. Please do subscribe to keep up with all of our latest tech and gaming videos. Also, let us know in the comments what you thought about the LG ultra-wide monitor, whether you would go for something like this or you would stick to a more conventional 16:9 gaming monitor, or if you're a content creator, if ultra-wide benefits you. I'd love to hear your take on that. If you are editing videos, whether you would prefer an ultra-wide monitor to do it on. As I say, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Now you can go into, if I go back into the menu again, or I turn it off. There we go. So now we're back on. So if I go back into the, oh, I've done it again. Whatever that says, max audio. I can't actually see it from this angle, so I'm just kind of pushing through and scripted what I'm actually saying on this monitor. I don't know what I'm doing with my hand either, so this whole segment didn't go very well in the first place. So if I go into the actual in-depth menu, the first option you've got is quick settings, where you've got on here input list and aspect ratios. Oh no. Sake. Third time, full time lucky, full time's a charm, shall we say that? So if we go into the actual in-depth menu system,